reflected sort of when I first met Eric. Sort of, it was at the by the market with a young aide, and he was just asking everybody sort of what was their biggest great memory, maybe because of his age, sort of as compared to me. Sort of said, but he remembered to serve the constituents in our area, and we're very honored to have Eric, our congressman.
Thank you, Charles, and thank you to the club for inviting me here. Early in the morning, I had started my fantasy football draft here the night before. So I'm right, a Livermore High School grad, someone that the community can be proud of, also earned her way. I wanted to just give you an update on what I've worked on. I've just passed a year in Congress, and that person with a very surprised look on her giving me the oath of office was Nancy O'Malley, the district attorney with me. I took my Rotary oath with the Hayward members. As much of the district as possible, and so we've had a pretty aggressive different town halls. I'll be honest, the rough and tumble town, we had one of the audience members wadded up, but I think he had come from the Altamont from Tracy. Literally $880,000 back to constituents, and insurance claims, IRS refunds, different money that people are, sometimes it's people who have called us. We have approximately 1,000 cases that we worked on, a Congress on your corner, and we are able to pick up cases at these types of once, normally about 2 to 3 times a month. I call it in your shoes, and the idea is go through. So some of the jobs are more fun and light. I worked as a barista here at Tech Lab. You were lucky that you did not get injured the day I was working as a parent. Go out and see how people do their jobs, but also interact with the public organizations. And here we are seeing building a house with Habitat for Humanity, where the hope is that a veteran will be able to move into the home. So I have to give credit to my staff who are out there at least, I think, once a month on average. Volume of requests come in for casework. About 40 people asking for positions on issues. Oftentimes they're asking other pieces of bipartisan bills, and over 7. I'll talk about that in a moment, but I do think it's really important where the public has such leadership in Congress that it's important to try and find more consensus. And then first earlier issues that I worked on, and now we're starting to contemplate and think about airplane a year ago, actually, from this point in time, and they were signed my letter asking the TSA not to allow that number could only get worse. It couldn't get better, so why would we want to go back to that? That they will no longer allow knives on airplanes. And for me, being a freshman and then see a result, and I think going through your first term of Congress, one of the uglier parts of my first year in Congress was the government contract for presidents. This shut down 16 days the employees at Lawrence Livermore and Sandia laboratories. These employees can not receive pay, in addition to the federal workforce that we have at the floor about our national laboratories during the shutdown.
Right, next, for 1 minute.
Mr. Speaker, the devastating effect of the shutdown that scientists at Lawrence Livermore and Sandia National Laboratory, the congressional district, and their job is to uphold the national security mission of the United States. You hold a town hall meeting for Sandia and Livermore employees, and the room was filled. Enough is enough. The responsible thing to do is to end the government shutdown. Ernie Moniz of the Department of Energy asking that we guarantee back pay for the furlough goes on. The responsible thing to do is to end this shutdown, make sure individuals who are serving the national mission. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I yield back.
Every weekend since being elected to Congress, when Congress down, that was threatened, but I knew that our employees, I was grateful that the laboratories worked with us to have a town hall at the market. It gave me an idea of what we do in Washington matters. One is getting rich working at our national laboratories. They're doing a national, their day-to-day lives. And so the shutdown after 6 days to the laboratory employees, I'll continue to be an advocate. And an important lesson that was learned in the Congress is a 2-year budget was passed within a few months. Partisan budget, and I'll talk about that in a moment. Provide about $13 million to BART to harden the Transbay tube, working overtime to upgrade and harden the tube, and I was able to and supported a $4 million grant for the Alameda County Fire Department. I think we'll continue to be out there. Comprehensive immigration reform. There's consensus in the Senate with nearly 70 votes. They passed a bite that did was it ends the family visa backlog and for the jobs that we can't fill here. So it expands that program pathway to citizenship where over 13 years, which I think over 13 years, if you get in line behind the people who have already been, certainly not a rubber stamp free pass to citizenship, and ideally will weed out, it increases by 20,000 border agents. There are only 20,000 Border Patrol agents right now, so it would double the size of the, it's a broken immigration system, and hopefully the House can act and the President expired, and 300,000 Californians do not have unemployment insurance. That donut wheel in downtown, on First Street in Livermore, who have just, especially if you're mid-career, to find a sustainable means, it is very, very difficult because we are seeing this trend of employers show age discrimination. And so that unemployment insurance, I think, gives our workforce skills, especially in IT or tech, where the workforce ended and it's very difficult out there to get a new job. There's also NAFTA. I have expressed and written concerns to the jobs that we saw that went to Mexico and Canada, and I asked the administration to move with caution. My economic development, I think that's probably because I was a city council member, and I know that in this spirit, the first is called the Main Street Revival Act. Looking across, I call them the for-lease or depressed area, you can defer your payroll taxes for your first. Charles, that idea came from when I was a candidate 2 years ago, and I was downtown corridor, Hayward's, B Street. I was asking one of the biggest problems is that there's still a lot of vacancies around them and their own bottom line. And so they said whatever the government could do to put more capital, asked a Republican to co-sponsor it with me. And so that's moving right along. Any city that lost redevelopment money, and Livermore lost redevelopment aid through the Federal Economic Development Administration and the payer dollars. There are already economic development grants out there, and so in the Union City mayor, we lost about $100 million in redevelopment to serve any community well, and a lot of communities are now sidelined. Second, this is the work that is going on at our national laboratories, not only to maintain our weapons energy, particularly the renewables, alternative fuel cells, wind and solar, and ranking member, the most senior Democrat on the energy subcommittee, and for our laboratories is important. Here's a visit to Sandia National Laboratory, and where millions and sometimes billions of dollars are invested, especially during these tough times, our taxpayer dollars being well spent. I think the only forum that rivaled the Livermore Town Hall was an immigration forum that I had. I still think our country is a country that was built with the heart. Now, I would say the most pleasure I've gotten out of the Congress has come through a congressional orientation trip right before they allowed us to the well of Congress. And so I went back to Harvard University, the fact that I was elected to Congress. But at this lecture, what Congress had done as far as its hyper-partisanship and inability to get along, and finance came together in the hotel lobby and talked about what we could do to answer the Republican or one Democrat. And week by week by week, we would meet 13. We met in a room about a quarter of this principles that we could agree on, and you can imagine how uncomfortable or lengthy that was. Social Security, different spending cuts that had to be made, new sources of revenue, and we announced ourselves as the United Solutions Caucus. And today we have 30 members. There are hundreds of caucuses in the Congress, believe it or not. And some of them as often as possible. We even brought together the Heritage Foundation on issues they thought we could work together on that they would mutually endorse. We've got our own bill with bipartisan support. We're not naive. We know that overnight it's I think one of our few chances of having a Congress that is more responsive and ignite the gridlock we have. So every week I get on that plane and fly 2,400. It is worth it, and I'll keep doing it as long as I feel that there are other people. Hope it gives you a sense of hope as well. And with that, I'd be happy to open it up for any questions.
Hey,
Yeah.
What are you doing to help promote the caucus, your new United Caucus, as far as the politics? And that's exactly where I think most people want you to go.
Sure. Every other day, I started in my office. I called the group into my office and said, we met, and then we met in David Valadeo's office. He's a Republican from the Central Valley. And caucus voted and endorsed that plan, and we sent out. There isn't much interest in reporting on members of Congress working together. Right now, it's about finding the building and laying the foundation. We'll never behave that way. And so hopefully in the next few years as we rise to be able to talk to each other and make decisions and not...
work as a freshman congressman, like with your staff, because you get to the staff, or it's how much money you raise, or how does that exactly work?
It's not a lot of money. We have that $1 million pays for Hayward. It pays for the communication to the public, salary, office leases, the mail that goes out, and my travel. I buy a $135 ticket. You have a fixed budget, so you could have 30 staff members if you want, or you could have 10 staff members in California and 8 staff members in Washington. The money you raise, etc. And one of my friends is a very tall and thick wall that separates that to the public. I think they just assume they're both hand in hand, and there are a lot of campaigning.
So if I can, so like Feinstein, or it's on the basis that because they've been in office so long?
No, they don't have a... Nancy Pelosi a couple of weeks ago flying to Washington. On occasions she was able to use the military, and just as John Boehner. There's another myth out there that my dad sent me an email and said, son, I hope, and you don't have to pay into your health care. And one, I do pay a month was my contribution, and I don't get a pension for over 20 years, or I become 62, and it's not a public will sometimes assume the worst. And having been a prosecutor, this is unfounded, or this isn't the evidence, or that's hearsay, but yes, in the back.
You say you got $1 million, how you spent it?
So last year we spent in 2013 that we had left, and so in that to go out to all these street corners does cost money, and
Each congressman has
not as much of a budget as a congressperson from California, member from California. The Hawaiian members and Alaskan members have the biggest budget. We had someone with a Stanford degree who was making $30,000. A separate story is, when you're forced to pay these, you can afford, because of their parents' resources, to take the job, which I wouldn't have been able to work on Capitol Hill right out of college, because I wouldn't have had a backstop. With that, I'll say you can follow us on the web. Despite my staff's wishes, I still write all of my own tweets and Facebook posts. You can change the password now. Thank you again for having me.
Show appreciation, we'd like to give you a bottle of olive oil.
Oh, great.
The Charles Pro here.
Yeah, great. Thank you. At Olivine. The raffle ticket is 331-545. 331-545.
Thank you, Rich.
Funny how the guys sell tickets.